Hi folks, what we're going to be looking at next is a comparison of means test and specifically a t-test for independent samples. And what this is designed to do is say that you have a variable of interest and you want to look at the mean level of that variable of interest. It could be levels of support for the president. It could be whether or not you support torture or not. Laugh as you might, that's actually what the example is going to be. And what you're doing is you're going to be comparing levels of support between two groups. And so what a t-test is it compares two means to see whether they are statistically different from one another. And in the sample data set that I've got in front of you that I'm using for a class right now, it's from a Pew survey that asked people whether or not they think that torture is never justified, sometimes justified, rarely justified, often justified when dealing with suspects of terrorism. And the way that this variable has been grouped for the purposes that we're going to analyze in this particular example is I have a torture 2 variable, and it's coded 1 if you think that torture is acceptable under any circumstances, and it's coded or 0 if you don't. And so let's get right into the t-test. And again, what we want to do is we want to look at the sample means across two different groups to see if they're different. And so I'm going to go to Analyze. I'm going to go to Compare Means, and I'm going to go to Independent Samples t-test. And once I open that, you'll see that I've already plugged the torture dummy variable into the sample. I clicked over here and I moved it over. I am interested, just because I'm interested, in taking a look at the difference between partisanship and support for torture. And again, if I were to hypothesize, given what I know about the way the world works and what Democrats and Republicans have said in the past, my guess is that Republicans, generally speaking, would be more likely to support torture, or as they would call it, enhanced interrogation techniques, where Democrats, what they would call that is unacceptable. Again, I don't care what your ideology is. The bottom line is I would hypothesize that there would in fact be a difference between the mean level support and those two groups. And so I've got a party variable here. I'll put it back so I can put it back in here. And the party variable that's in the original Pew data set, respondents who were Republican were coded 1, Democrats were coded 2, Independents were coded 3, other were coded 4, and then there was some other category like don't know or something that was 5. In this particular case, because it's a t-test, we can only compare two means, so we're going to compare Democrats to Republicans. So I put the party in as the grouping variable, and now I have to define groups. As I said a minute ago, Republicans were 1, so I'm going to go ahead and put 1 in. If I wanted to compare them to Independents, I'd put in 3, but I don't. I want to compare them to Democrats, so I'm going to go ahead and put in 2, and if I go ahead and do that, I'm ready to go. All the data information has been entered. I don't need to do any of the options. It's going to give me a 95% confidence interval as the default, and that is the number that I would like to see. So we're all ready to go. I'm not going to paste this in a syntax file because I'm not changing my original data set. Because we're just doing an analysis here, let's hit OK and see what we see. All right. In the previous video that I just did, I split the data set by party, and as a consequence this didn't run. But hey, let's fix it better. Let's go back to the split file, take off the compare groups, analyze everybody. And folks, I'm really sorry for that detour. That wouldn't happen to you. It only happened because I previously split the data file by party, and thus it was not able to compare Democrats and Republicans. Go back and do the exact same thing that we've done. If we go to compare means, we go to the independent samples t-test. All the data is just how we left it. This time I hit OK, and our results are going to look fine. And what do we learn? We learned that 90% of Republicans think that sometimes torture is acceptable. That's what that 0.9 means. Whereas 57.6% of Democrats think that torture is sometimes different. It doesn't take a genius, given these sample sizes, to figure out that they are probably going to be statistically significant differences, but that is in fact what the t-test looks at. The t-test, if we look down here at the bottom, and this is the number that we're interested in, this column right here, what it says is that if you were to do this .000 significance means that this sample is sized, if we were to look at the general population, a significance anything below .05, and this is way below .05, indicates that there is a statistically significant difference. And because when we look at the original data and see the direction of this, what we can say is with complete and utter confidence and surprising no one that Republicans are more supportive of enhanced interrogation techniques than our Democrats. 90% support it, where 58% of the Democrats don't support it. I'm sorry, 58% of the Democrats do. Got to get those numbers right. Almost all Republicans do. A significant majority of Republicans, or rather Democrats, support torture, but there is a statistically significant difference. And that is, my friends, what a t-test does, and in particular what a independent samples t-test does.